It started as writing, and right from the beginning you knew this was different. It was a virus, an infection. By the time they tried to evacuate the cities, it was already too late. The infection was everywhere.
Hello? 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 Hello?
That was longer than a heartbeat.
Being a true game-changer for the zombie genre, 28 Days Later introduced infected humans to mainstream audiences. Blending a gritty tone with a grim warning to humanity, let's take a look behind the scenes of 28 Days Later, from its early days of production to its theatrical release, including a summary and an analysis of Danny Boyle's visionary work. Following a sudden rise in popularity since the 60s thanks to George Romero, the zombie genre had a bit of a slowdown in the 90s. Aside from a few decent films, the best place to see brains getting smashed was in video games. And that's exactly what led author and screenwriter Alex Garland to write the screenplay for 28 Days Later. Influenced by works such as Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, The Omega Man, and the first Resident Evil game, Garland came up with the idea for a story set in a post-apocalyptic London where zombies are no longer undead people but infected living individuals with impaired intelligence who are still able to run, jump, hide, and so on. To outline the plot of the movie, the screenwriter drew inspiration from John Wyndham's 1951 novel The Day of the Triffids, in which a man wakes up in a hospital and discovers that most of the human population has gone blind due to the light caused by a meteor shower and that deadly plants have overrun the earth. After completing his screenplay, Garland presented it to director Danny Boyle, with whom he had just worked on The Beach, released in 2000. Eager to bring this story to life, the two kicked off the 28 Days Later project. With Universal Pictures refusing to fund the project, producer Andrew MacDonald and his production company DNA Films gave it an $8 million budget, part of which was provided by the UK National Lottery, which was featured at some point in the movie. When looking for his lead actor, Boyle first approached Ewan McGregor, best known as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, but after failing to reach an agreement with the British actor, Boyle tried to sign Ryan Gosling, who also turned down the offer. He eventually chose Cillian Murphy, who wasn't widely known at the time.
Imagine yourself in your worst moment of road rage and multiply it by 1 million, and that's what these people are like.
When designing The Infected, Boyle and Garland drew inspiration from the Ebola virus, which is known for causing bleeding from the gums and eyes, as well as blood spitting. In the film's universe, the infection known as the rage virus has nothing to do with the rabies virus we know. It is transmitted through blood and drives its host into a state of extreme relentless rage.
In 28 Days Later, the filmmakers created a thoroughly gripping vision of a country crippled by a new disease.
Filming for 28 Days Later began on September 1st, 2001 and took 9 weeks. The film's shooting locations included some of London's most famous areas such as Westminster Bridge, Piccadilly Circus and Oxford Street. The crew was given permission to close off some of London's busiest streets very early on Sunday mornings for roughly 45-minute slots to shoot. Driving scenes were filmed on the M1 highway connecting London to Leeds via Manchester. However, the crew only had a few minutes to film as traffic couldn't be blocked for very long.
To create a more urban feel to the images, the filmmakers chose digital video over film.
I think it's beautiful for urban work. It has a grittiness about it that's magnificent for your city movie, really.
What makes the film unique is its rather unconventional camera work. Most of 28 Days Later was shot using lightweight digital cameras to create a sense of realism and intimacy, bringing the viewer closer to Jim.
Hello?
Danny Boyle traded image quality for a larger number of cameras so that he could shoot from multiple angles, something he felt was better suited to the urban setting of London. To ensure the action scenes in the second half of the movie were as realistic as possible, the actors playing soldiers had to train for several days with the British Army to learn how to handle firearms and act like real soldiers. For the record, during filming, the crew forgot to pick up one of the fake bodies used in the scene where Jim hides from his pursuers. The police was notified by a passerby and even came to investigate the scene before learning about the film. Here is another fun fact. The plane Jim sees in the sky was filmed by Danny Boyle from his backyard. Last but not least, in the final scene of the movie, when the fighter jet spots the 3 survivors, the pilot speaks Finnish and asks over the radio if they should send a helicopter to rescue them. Oh, and one of the 3 clocks here has its second hand stopped at 28. Initially, 3 alternate endings were considered besides the one we got, but they ended up being discarded. In the first one, Jim is shot, and after escaping the mansion, he is rushed to a hospital by Selina and Hannah, but eventually dies from his injuries, leaving the 2 women on their own, although they are ultimately rescued. In the second ending, Jim and his friends find the facility where the outbreak started. A surviving scientist explains that the only way to cure Frank is through a full blood transfusion, and Jim chooses to sacrifice himself to save him. Finally, the third ending is essentially the first one with added flashbacks experienced by Jim while dying, revealing how he fell into a coma in the first place. 28 Days Later was released in British theaters on November 1st, 2002 and hit the world in 2003. Upon its release, the film got positive reviews and was praised for bringing the infected subgenre into the mainstream. It grossed over $85 million worldwide, more than 10 times its budget. Beyond its commercial success, the cultural impact of 28 Days Later is undeniable. The movie influenced its genre, shifting the focus from traditional undead zombies to fast, aggressive, contagious infected. Perhaps the best examples of its influence can be seen in works like The Last of Us and even The Walking Dead, where similar themes are explored. Speaking of similarities, both Jim and Rick Grimes happen to wake up from a coma in an abandoned hospital. One of the tracks from 28 Days Later, titled In the House, in a Heartbeat, also became quite popular and has been remixed and reused in later entries of the film series, as well as in other works such as Kick-Ass and trailers for Metro 2033 and Metro Exodus. Finally, the world of 28 Days Later doesn't end with the film, as there is a graphic novel called 28 Days Later, The Aftermath, which is set between 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. There is also a comic book simply known as 28 Days Later, which focuses on Selina's life after the events of the film. Cambridge, United Kingdom, early 2000s. While secret experiments on chimpanzees are being conducted in a gloomy laboratory, a group of animal rights activists breaks into the facility and releases one of the primates despite a scientist's warning that the animal was infected with the rage virus, a highly contagious virus that causes uncontrollable violent behavior. This triggers a series of events that, within a matter of days, lead to the total collapse of society. 28 days later, Jim, who had fallen into a coma following a car accident, wakes up in a completely deserted London. Quickly realizing that he is not alone, Jim is rescued by Mark and Selina, 2 survivors who explain the situation to him. Together, they set out to find Jim's parents, but unfortunately for him, it's already too late. Being drawn by light and noise, some infected attack the group and wound Mark. Without second thought, Selina finishes him off right in front of Jim. Seeking shelter, they spot a makeshift signal in the distance. Getting to the signal proves dangerous, but Jim and Selina finally reach the building and meet Frank and his daughter Hannah. Together, they try to make it to a military base near Manchester, which is supposed to keep them safe. Upon reaching their destination, Frank is infected by a drop of blood from an infected corpse. He is brutally shot dead by armed men right in front of his daughter. Jim, Selena, and Hannah are then taken to a fortified mansion by a small military unit. The dream of being rescued and protected quickly turns into a nightmare for the three survivors, who realize that the all-male military unit is more interested in subjugating women than in saving humanity. Selena and Hannah are held captive, while Jim is taken aside to be executed. Even so, he manages to escape, and after seeing a plane in the sky, he realizes there is still hope. But to dare to hope, Jim has no choice. He must fight. Once night falls, he frees the infected soldiers and wreaks havoc in the mansion. Taking advantage of the chaos, Jim infiltrates the mansion and kills several soldiers before freeing the two women. In their escape, he is shot and wounded, but thanks to Hannah, the three finally manage to flee. 28 days later, the three survivors who had found refuge in a remote house in northern England put out a distress signal that was spotted by a military aircraft. This marked the beginning of their new life. Watching 28 Days Later today, one might think it's just another average movie about an infection, the kind we're used to seeing these days. But we should instead remember that this is the film that popularized the genre, since before it, infected characters hardly existed. With this movie, Danny Boyle leaves us no choice. We follow Jim's story in the most intimate way, experiencing everything he goes through from the moment he wakes up. We watch him grow throughout his journey, showcasing the resilience humans are capable of to survive. And the catalyst for all of this is Selena, who understood from the start that one must be ruthless when it was needed. What's interesting to note is that once Jim spotted the plane, the movie changes. And just like Rambo, Jim is driven by his will to survive and acts like an infected until he kills the last soldier standing in his way. The strength of the film lies in its realistic depiction of human behavior in a survival situation. Take Jim, for example, who turned to God when he had lost all hope and feared for his life. However, the first infected he encounters happens to be a priest, Danny Boyle thereby questioning the existence of God. We can also discuss the importance of unity and human relationships that are key to mankind. The movie is also a warning to all of us. On the one hand, it's a warning about our relationships with each other, as shown by the soldiers and how they treat women. We could say that Danny Boyle perfectly captures Jean-Paul Sartre's quote, "Hell is other people." On the other hand, 28 Days Later is a warning about our relationship with nature and animals. Indeed, by constantly exploiting other species, mankind is increasingly exposing itself to ethical, environmental, and health hazards. Given the recent outbreaks and diseases transmitted from animals to humans that have resulted in countless casualties among their populations, it's clear that Boyle and Garland were ahead of their time. 28 Days Later delivers a powerful message about human nature while also being the starting point of a brand new apocalypse.
The thing that's going to scare you or horrify you is a reality-based thing.
It's a warning for us as well as an entertainment.